Hey everybody, this is Ermantourage with Ermantourage. Thank you so much for being here. It is Saturday, October 10th. This is yet another virtual fundraiser we've been doing for Operation Underground Railroad. For those who are into anti-human trafficking efforts, please check them out at ourrescue.org. We did our first Zoom sessions with them back in September, and this is another additional fundraiser for them. So please check them out, ourrescue.org. Today we have with us my friend Tara Long, who's co-hosting with me. So everyone say hi to Tara.
Hi, guys.
We also have Bryan Smiley. A little bit about Bryan. Bryan is our special guest for our event today. Bryan is currently president of film and TV at Hartbeat Productions, the production company of comedian and media mogul Kevin Hart. He was previously vice president of creative development and production at Columbia Pictures, a Sony Pictures Entertainment company. At Columbia, Bryan spearheaded a major production deal with Unanimous Media, the production company of NBA star Stephen Curry. In addition, Bryan completed a multi-picture deal with Issa Rae, the star and producer of the critically acclaimed Insecure on HBO. Before joining Columbia, Bryan co-founded No Label Productions, a multicultural film and television company with NBA star Baron Davis. Prior to No Label, Bryan consulted for several top media companies, including Fox Digital Entertainment and Fox Digital Studios. Everyone give a silent round of applause to Bryan Smiley.
Hello.
I see all this. So it's really cool to see like all these silent hands. So Bryan, thanks so much for being here. You have such a long resume. That was not even half of it. So I want to keep it brief when I introduce you. So your resume like spans like a whole page and a half. So that's really good to hear from you today. So much knowledge we can draw from you. This is like the most trivial question, and I know it's the simplest question ever. But I like to ask this because it gets people knowledgeable of your background and maybe helps them come up with questions when it's time for the audience Q&A. So I've read a little bit about background, but I like to know people's quote unquote mailroom stories, you know, how they got started in the industry, how they got to where they are. So if you could talk about where you start off, you know, I'd always love hearing how people plant the seed, right? So when you plant the seed in the entertainment industry and where you are now. So if you can fill in that middle area and talk about how you got started and to where you are now.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I was one of those guys that knew from an early age I wanted to be in the film business. So I went to film school at a place called Columbia College in Chicago. And upon graduating there, my first kind of real job outside of school was working as the assistant to a really big producer named Arnon Milchan. And Arnon, he owns a company called New Regency. So at that time, especially, they're a really big producer of film and TV content. Huge shows like The Bernie Mac Show, Malcolm in the Middle, and huge movies like Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Pretty Woman and about 200 other films. So he's a very prolific producer. He was making, at that time, maybe 4 movies a year. And they had always 3 pilots going every year. So it was a very busy company. It's a big company for a production company, maybe 200 employees globally. And he was unique in the fact that he financed all of his movies himself. So he was one of those people in town that had the resources to cover not only the budget for the film, but also the P&A, which is print and advertising. So working for him was really a monumental experience because I really understood how the business worked in a way that they didn't teach you in school and in a way that most people didn't know. So that's where I started. And I worked for him for about 2 years. When I left his desk, I started working more on the business side in home entertainment, which at that time was really about selling DVDs and Blu-rays. Netflix was brand new. iTunes VOD was brand new. So it was a really interesting time to be in the home entertainment space. But that kind of led me to business development, led me to my consulting work, and eventually to starting my own company with Baron. Did you get all that?
Sorry about it. Yeah. Sorry about that. Oh, my mute button was acting up. So very, very cool. So obviously you work in the space and diversity is a big talk nowadays. So for you being African-American and being in an executive position at a big major production company, do you see a lot of the needle moving in the right direction in terms of diversity when it comes to executive positions when it comes to positions behind the camera?
Yeah, I think really the last year, quite frankly, and I would give a lot of credit to the Black Lives Matter movement and just kind of how that really made people, I think, listen or pay attention. Um, I've seen a lot of studios and production companies and networks being very aggressive about diversifying their talent ranks. I mean, executive talent ranks. So I've never seen time like this in Hollywood. I've been in the business now about 16 years. But now more than ever, people are starting to respect the need for diversity, and they see the benefits of it for whatever reason. And they're working really hard to find people to fill certain roles. I think the problem is it's a very short list because it's been so hard for people of color to get in the door before for a lot of different reasons. There's not a large bench of executives, so to speak, to fill a lot of these roles. So a lot more needs to be done really to get people who are at the very beginning of their careers to lean into being entertainment executives and kind of nurture them up so they can get some of these jobs that are available.
Nice. Sorry. Thanks, Bryan. Yeah, I'm wondering what your biggest insights have been in the past 6 months regarding just could be yourself or the industry that you probably would not have had it not been for, what's been going on in the world. So just could be one, could be just whatever. I guess it could be a gift or a blessing or insight of any kind.
Well, I joke with my colleagues, maybe before COVID, we did a lot of in-person meetings, like a lot. Like most of my day was driving from studio to networks to meetings to lunches to dinners. And because of obviously what's happening now, almost everything's on Zoom. And quite frankly, what I've learned is you can accomplish quite a bit of things by video conferencing. And you save so much time in LA by not driving to 4 meetings a day between the driving and the parking and the valet and the water bottle thing. So I think going forward, we'll be doing a lot more kind of virtual meetings, which I think would make everyone's life more productive, quite frankly.
So I'm sure you get this a lot from people, and I'm gonna assume that someone here was gonna ask this anyway. So I'll just go ahead and take that question. But going into 2021 and maybe even into 2022, what sort of content do you expect people to be writing, and what would you personally be looking for? Because I'm sure a lot of people are going to be writing about what's going on in the world today, whether it's socially or whether it's about pandemics or anything that's scientific related. But where do you see content going towards in the next 2 years because of what's going on?
It's so funny you asked that. I think at the beginning of COVID, there's a lot of conversation of like, do people want to hear or see stories that are kind of reflective of what's happening? And I think that was kind of the thought. And even, in development, do we develop smaller stories that we can make with these COVID restrictions? I mean, we did a TV show, a game show for Celebrity Game Face, which we, developed, produced, and released during COVID. It was specifically made and designed to work in a COVID production world. However, many months later, I don't think that's the case anymore. I think you'll see a lot more content that is maybe not as heavy, that may be more kind of mindless entertainment. Because I do believe people have been stuck in a very kind of dark place between the isolation and the deaths maybe around them and their family, and certainly the lack of employment for some people. So, I believe people want to see like big entertaining content at the scales that we were used to pre-COVID. And I don't think stuff that's super heavy and sad is going to work, because I think audiences have had a lot of that in their personal lives and they need a little bit of escape. Now with art, there's always going to be people that push the envelope and make content that may be directly talking about what's happening in our culture. I think that's fine. But certainly I think on a studio level, we are striving for escapism. So I imagine there'll be a lot more of that going forward. I know things that we are developing are things that would have worked pre-COVID, and we still think they work today. And certainly we want people to feel good about what we produce and not be reminded about all the difficult things in the world, because I think enough of that's on TV every day anyway.
Yeah, that's an awesome point, Bryan. I think that I mean, laughter is obviously the best medicine, right? So, and
Yeah.
and you can also still have messaging in there. It's just doesn't have to be like so dramatic and heavy. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd love to know what, and I love asking this question just to everybody in their industry, but if you had like a magic wand and you could change or improve anything right now, what would that be?
Can I not say for COVID to go away? Is that too cheap of an answer?
So yeah, just if like everything is as it is, right? COVID is here. Yeah.
Okay, so COVID's here. I don't know.
Here.
I would say, what would be interesting is if kind of the standard way that the industry, I'll speak for the film side, develops, which can be very kind of slow, right? Because you can develop a project for many, many years before you can actually get it made. If they look at what's happening, the need for content, and we can expedite that process. So a studio can say, we're going to make this movie on this date. So everyone's driving towards that. Right now it's more like, we might make this movie. We don't have a date yet. Just keep developing and developing and developing. And I think that's very difficult for artists and filmmakers because we spend so much time on these projects, most of which never get made. It would be great to figure out a system in which we can kind of cut down that development time and really be on the same timeline with our financing partner to when we can actually make the movie. I think that would be exciting for a lot of people, especially for people who only get paid when a movie gets made, like most producers, for example. In a lot of directors, quite frankly, they don't get money until a movie's made. And when you work in this business and this town, it's very expensive. It can be quite challenging for some people to not get movies made for many, many years. I think there's a misconception that a lot of filmmakers, directors, and producers in Hollywood are all rich. And the fact of the matter is that's not true. People, kind of work from gig to gig. And sometimes these movies could be 2-3 years apart, right? But they do it because they love it. They love the business. But ultimately, it'd be a lot easier for people, I think, if they knew that the project they're working so hard on will actually get made at some point.
Now, Bryan, I'm sure everyone asks you this because of who you work for, or who you work with, rather. Let's talk about working with Kevin Hart, because he's such a huge name in not only comedy, but in filmmaking as a whole. So what was it about you that drew you to him? What was it about? What did you say? Oh, Bryan, I want this. I want your skills because it helps my company. So what was that like?
I mean, yeah, it's a relationship. So you get to know someone over time, and you get a sense for somebody if they're good for your business and for your brand, which Kevin is a brand. So I just think we had a lot of conversations, and we just seemed to be on the same page. And clearly, I knew a lot about the movie business, from creative development all the way to P&Ls, and I had done some TV as well. So it just seemed like the right fit.
Amazing. Folks, we're going to do maybe 1 or 2 more questions before we jump over to the audience questions. But something I want to bring up, because a lot of people may have questions that, and this something like asking you this would help them kind of navigate where they want to ask, what they want to ask during the audience Q&A. What does your everyday look like? Obviously, pre-COVID, obviously, but on a normal given basis, as an executive, as someone in creative, what does your everyday look like?
Well, it's different every day, but I guess I'm doing the same things every day. So we have a staff of about 13 people right now and growing. So a lot of my job is just managing what they're doing, or I would even say managing, but also supporting what they're doing, so that they feel like they can get the most out of our situation as they push their projects forward, film or TV, right? So a lot of it's that. We have a lot of projects in development. We have something like 23 films set up at studios all over town, and like I think 14 TV series set up all over town. So as you can imagine, that's a lot of scripts and a lot of notes that we are reading. A lot of broad creative calls with writers and showrunners and network execs and studio execs, and our producing partners. We have a lot of producing partners we work with, and our filmmakers. So it's just a lot of meetings, a lot of Zooms, a lot of calls, and a lot of reading in the evening. So I stay pretty busy all day.
And nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. So I did have a few more questions, but the group chat is blowing up. So I know so many people want to ask you questions in the next 30 minutes that we do have you. So folks, once again, I'm going to call on a few of you before we cut off the recording, but just because we cut off the recording doesn't mean we had to jump off, because we still have time to ask Bryan questions after that. So first, we're going to go with Chris K, followed by Sean, then Charles. Chris K from the Bay, how are you?
Hey, Erman, how you doing?
Good to
Thank
see
you so
you.
much. Good to see you too. Thank you so much, Bryan, for your time and for taking the questions and for doing this. It's an honor and a privilege to meet you here. So my question earlier today, when you were giving us your background and how you got started, you mentioned about the Black talent in the industry and how there's not a lot of opportunities out there, especially for Blacks in executive roles. So my question to you, sir, is in what ways are you involved in helping to get unknown Black talent into the business and into positions to, shift this narrative a little bit to make some change?
Yeah, now I would clarify, I think there's a lot of opportunity today, more than ever before. I think the problem is there's not like candidates that can fill those opportunities. And a lot of that is because the studios, the powers, the production companies have not done a great job of getting young people of color in, so that when they're 10 years in their career or whatever it is, they can get these big jobs that do exist today. Quite frankly, myself and a lot of my friends who are executives, we've been getting a lot of calls from recruiters and from staffers and staffing agencies. But the reality is, it's only so many of us, and we all have really amazing gigs already, right? So who do they hire? But I think to your other question about what Hartbeat's doing, I mean, we are very much looking to, bring in interns of all backgrounds, but we specifically want to have a lot of interns of color, assistants of color, and young execs of color. So it's all about how do we mentor kind of that next generation, so that in 5, 6, 7, 8 years, they can grow, whether it's with Hartbeat or some other amazing place around town. But really, it's like providing a space, almost an incubator, where they can develop as executive talent. Obviously, as big as we are still kind of limited to the head count, right? But when you do have vacant positions, it's a big mandate for us to bring in diverse faces, which is also just good business, quite frankly.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
Okay, sorry to unmute myself. Sean, I believe you're next.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. First, Bryan, congrats on the move to Hartbeat.
Thank you.
And my question is, do you see any shift or a major shift in the industry to focus on technology such as blockchain?
Not really. I mean, I gotta be honest with you. I don't think people understand blockchain, quite frankly. It's been something that's popped up the last, 2 or 3 years now, but maybe a little longer, I'm not sure. But no one really gets it, right? I think it's gonna take very smart people to figure out how it makes sense for the media business, and then to figure out how to implement it in our business, and then people can kind of learn about it and maybe then adopt it. Right now, I'm not sure we're there yet. And I do know there's people who are like really smart who are probably talking about it in their committee meetings, but it certainly has not reached my purview as a producer.
Okay, well, I'll hit you up with it because we're changing the distribution game for indie filmmakers.
Okay.
Take care.
Yep.
And Charles is up next. Thanks, Sean.
Hey, Charles, are you there?
Hi.
Here we go.
How you doing? Thanks, Tara. Thanks, Armand. Bryan, thank you as well. It's great to hear you talk today. I have a question regarding the content itself story. There is an interesting thing going on right now in the horror genre. There seems to be this attraction to having Black stories told in this genre. Things like Lovecraft Country. All the way going to a couple of years ago with Get Out. that seems to be an emerging genre. From your purview, are you seeing any other genres that are also gaining traction that content creators should look out for?
Yeah, if you're talking about other genres where people of color in front of or behind the camera, I think it's all genres, quite frankly. I mean, sci-fi is becoming, here's what I would say genres where you traditionally have not seen people of color, people are leaning into that, right? I think, you've seen it in comedies, obviously. You've seen it, I guess a little bit in action movies, right? But definitely not sci-fi and not horror until recently, right? Not really animation in a big way. I mean, there's been things here and there. So I think those are the opportunities. Like for, let's give people of color a chance to tell their stories the way, in their voice and their POV, especially in these genres that just traditionally have not been accessible to people of color. Sci-fi is a big one, and fantasy. You can figure out an amazing sci-fi thing or fantasy thing. There's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, you see a lot of interest in N.K. Jemisin lately. She just won the MacArthur Grant, and she's jealous of her. She's so remarkable. She has such a way with words. It's amazing. She does good stuff. But great. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Thank you, Charles. Good to meet you, sir. Up next, we have Melissa, Jazz, then Paul. Melissa, how are you?
Hi, guys. Thank you so much, Bryan. Chris kind of asked my question, but I was wondering if you're interested in moving into development after being in the industry for a while on the production side. One, do you know of any training programs that might exist as far as mentorships outside of Hartbeat? But then also, do you recommend that someone start as a reader, or what other avenues are there to start?
You're saying, so you're in physical production and you want to get into development?
Correct. I've done some acquisitions and things as well, but really wanting to move over into the development space and just kind of wondering how.
Yeah, can you hear me okay? I got something a little choppy. I don't know if that's my connection or yours.
Oh, yes, I can hear you.
We missed the last like 3 seconds maybe.
Oh, copy that. Yes, I was saying I've been in the industry for over a decade on the production side, and I have also done acquisitions, but now I'm interested in looking at development and just wondering what's the best way to go about that. And I know there's a limited number of mentorship and training programs that exist. I was wondering if you personally had any idea of some as a suggestion, and if you recommended starting with like a reader position.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, fair enough. I think that, development is probably the part of the industry where the saying is, it's about who you know, is probably most important. And it's everything from assistants on up, quite frankly, right? Because it is a pretty small group, if you look at studios, it's really small. It's only so many studios that exist on the feature side, right? But there's other big production companies and networks, obviously. So I would say, one, be willing to, if you really, really want it, be willing to start kind of at the beginning, which is like an assistant, right? And a lot of this trying to meet other assistants, agency assistants, management company assistants that can help give you opportunities, things they hear about. The biggest kind of feeder, I would say, into all these places have always been the agencies and management companies. So the question is, do you want to spend 2 years at an agency or management company just to kind of learn that really networking side of things? And if you do that, you'll hear about opportunities that you can apply for that'll be at bigger places like studios or networks, right? But the point is, it's very hard to hear about those jobs if you're not a part of that network. So, for example, when we're looking for assistants, we first ask our current assistants who they know, right? And then we second go to our agent or our manager and we say, hey, we're looking for an assistant at Hartbeat, put the word out, and they tell all their assistants, right? So it really is a pretty closed thing. Like we don't post jobs anywhere. And I think the studios networks, they have to by law post jobs, but traditionally they're not really hiring people. They're not really hiring people out of that posting pool. For the most part, they're coming from recommendations internally, right? Now they do hire some people, but the most of the jobs come from recommendations. So I would say, look at the agencies and management companies. They don't pay well, and it's a lot of work, but it'll give you the network and exposure to learn about what jobs are available that you can then apply for, right? And then it's about kind of building your way up. That's one route. The other route is sometimes just get lucky. You get to meet somebody who's in a position that really believes in you, and they'll give you a chance, right? But that's like, all right, networking events like this, I guess, and other things. How do you meet executives and even recruiters who can vouch for you and help you get that first foot in the door? I don't know if I recommend being a reader. I would say maybe. If that job puts you in close proximity to the action, then yes. And there's some readers that work at the big places that are so isolated. When I was at Sony, I think we had 12 or 14 readers, and I met them once, and that's because we had a meeting just to meet the readers, right? But without that meeting, I never saw them. I just got their emails. So I didn't know who they were. I didn't get to know them on a personal level, which would have made it hard for them, I think, to have the relationship needed to kind of transition over, right? But maybe some readers are much closer to the action. They're in the office next to the execs, and that's different because then you get to meet somebody and get to talk to them, right? Did that kind of make sense? It's so much about networking. It really is, and that's not networking with the biggest people in town, right? It's not like I got to know Will Packer or somebody. It really means meeting just people who are in it, and in a lot of cases, you'll get a lot of value out of just knowing assistants and coordinators and managers, because also they know about jobs. I don't know about any jobs that aren't executive jobs, right? But our managers do, our assistants, they know about all those jobs. So I would say you want to figure out how to get to know those people.
Got you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Melissa, email me. I might know a few people who you can talk with. So email me after this. Yeah.
Thanks.
Awesome. Up next, we have Jazzy, Paul, Darius, Kaylin. Once again, if you do not hear your name, don't worry. We have more questions after the recording. So Jazzy, Paul, Darius, Kaylin. Hey, Jazzy.
Hi, thank you, Armand. Thank you, Tara. Thank you, Bryan, as well, for being here, of course.
You're welcome.
So my question is primarily about a little bit that you spoke about at the top, which is about there not being enough of Black and people of color for the exec positions, because it's so hard to get in the door. So as a newcomer, I'm wondering what does it take for you if you see a newcomer who is a writer or producer? What interests you in their work? What kind of gets you to say, oh, this might be someone who has, something that I want to work on, or something that's fit for one of our productions? What kind of gets you, to invest, I guess, in someone who doesn't have as much experience as others?
That's a great question. I think maybe this is a better way of explaining it, because we certainly talk to young talent all the time, right? But I think there's a part I do a lot of these speaking things, and I do think this one part can be missed a little bit, which is Hollywood is very much a community, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm speaking pre-COVID, because COVID, everything's a little weird because you don't really see anybody anymore, right? But Hollywood's a community, so there's a lot of events in Hollywood, right? There's panels, there's Q&As like this, there's parties, there's all types of events, and I will give someone who's kind of young a shot, but it's not somebody I just met, right? Mm-hmm. It's someone who I probably met 3 or 4 or 5 times. I'm at this event and there's Jazzy, right? I'm at this Q&A, there's Jazzy, right? I'm at this award show, there's Jazzy. And eventually you start seeing that person as a part of the community, even if they're an assistant, or even if they don't have a job at all, or even if they never sold anything, right? And now you know them, you kind of say, oh, okay, this person, she's hungry. I'm seeing her everywhere. And eventually it'll be you know what? Yeah, just send it over. We'll take a look at it. Because now I know you, right? If I just met you on the street, it's tough. It's tough for a lot of reasons, because so many things that if you're not leaning into the business, you don't really understand the liability with sending me something, right? And here's an example that goes into it. You know, you're writing a movie about, you know, car racing, okay? And you send it to me. You say, hey, I love this thing about car racing. I'm gonna send it to Bryan, right? And Bryan gets it, but Bryan has 2 things already in development on car racing, right? If I make that movie and I tell you I didn't make it on your script, I have my own script, you won't believe me. You'll say, oh, you stole my script. I sent it to you and you made it, right? And that's because you may not know like the business. And the reality is we get so many scripts. There's no new idea under the sun. So it's a good chance that your script may be similar to something else. And that's why people only take stuff from agents and managers, because at that point it's vetted, right? If an agent calls me, sends me a script about car racing, I'm gonna tell that agent, we already have that, or I'm gonna read it and say it's too close, and the agent will understand, right? And they're not gonna come try and sue me because they understand that we get so much material, right? Which is why people are a little bit wary of accepting something from strangers, right? But if I know you, you know me, and we have a relationship, even if it's very casual, then it's like, oh, Jazzy, this was good, but I had this car racing thing. And you'll get that it's not me trying to steal your thing, right? It's just that this is how the business works. It's a lot of car racing scripts out there, right? And it takes a year to get the right one made. So I would say, if you're young in the game, try and meet people and just be in the space, be in the community, right? And eventually your face and name will register with the right people. And eventually when they see your email or your call or whatever, there'll be some type of rapport and not just someone I've just never met, right? Now, again, this is pre-COVID, so things are a little bit different. There's not a lot of events like there used to be. But certainly that's why they say networking is so important. And that's what networking is just going to these places and making your face seen, your name heard, and eventually you'll start to click with people, right? So I recommend you figure out how to do it. You know, again, this is weird times, but get out there in front of people the best you can.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jazzy. Up next, we have Paul, Darius, then Kaylin. Paul, how are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Good to see you, sir. First timer, welcome.
Yes. Bryan, thanks for doing this. Lots of good information. I appreciate it. In the very beginning, you mentioned being a consultant, and that's pretty unique for the entertainment industry. If you could elaborate on that, and then also how has that played into your progression into what you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, I would say this, you'd be surprised on the business side, there's quite a lot of consultants. I mean, all the big agencies, network studios, they work with the biggest consulting firms in the world for various things they're working on, right? Everything from finance to corporate strategy, the whole nine, right? So when I left New Regency, I was doing business development, and I was working on a deal where we were trying to establish a model to make low budget films with social media stars. That's back when that was first starting to happen, right? And Fox was doing the same model and, you know, convinced me to come and help them build it on a consulting basis, right? Because it wasn't really a job. They were kind of figuring out how to, like, you know, either restructure a current unit or build a new unit. So I was so excited about the opportunity, the deal I was working on, I decided to go do that with them. And it was a great experience. I mean, you know, consulting at a studio in the right capacity can be great. Right. You know, I had a lot of free time, and you know, great, you know, all the benefits that come from the executive job were there, and certainly, you had a boss that was different, right? You were hired for them to listen to what you had to say. So what I had to say was pretty well valued, and oftentimes they listened to it. So for me, it just kind of put me in the capacity that my ideas and my thoughts and my vision and my strategy has value, and I can get other people to buy into that strategy, right? People at the very highest levels of big companies. So I think if anything, it really helped me increase confidence even more and understand that, like, if I really believe in something and it's really well thought through, that I can push that agenda forward and get it done.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you so much, Paul. Good to meet you. Up next, we have Darius, followed by Kaylin. Hey, Darius.
Hey, what's going on? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Welcome.
Hey, Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Bryan, for hosting this event. Me personally, one of the main reasons I wanted to actually join was I produce music, and I wanted to know, what's the best route to take for an independent music composer / music producer to get our music placed in film and TV. Would it be basically just solicit out to the music supervisor, or join an association, or do you have some websites that you mainly know of where a lot of people hang out to submit music? What is your take on that?
I'm not as familiar. I mean, we're doing a show now for a place, and we're in the process of figuring out the music of it all. And I got to say, a lot of it is one, hiring a music supervisor to come on. So we're in the middle of that. Two, our director has a lot of ideas based on, obviously, him being an artist. He's heard things. Some of them are big, some of them are very indie. But I would say, a lot of what we're going to be looking at will be coming from the music supervisor. So I would say, you want to try and meet those people as possible. You get to know them. Also, directors and filmmakers. I mean, they're going to have ideas always about the kind of music they want in a certain scene. So trying to be on their radar. And I know this is like, how do you do that? I don't know, because there's so many, right? Even music supervisors, maybe a lot less of those. I would say maybe if there's music that you make that kind of fits a certain style of show that's currently on air or a movie, I would try and meet those music supervisors and let them know that you exist, right? But it's complicated. It's some politics there, right? Because there's the label component to it, the people that manage the catalogs, right? So certainly, they know some music supervisors more than others, and they maybe use their catalog over other people's catalogs. So I just think it's just getting out there, making people know that you want to compose, and then also probably trying to meet young filmmakers. Those kids out of UFC, those people out of UFC and AFI, NYU, people who are going to be like the next wave of filmmakers. I think getting in with them really sets you up, because what happens is if you compose a film that becomes a big hit or a Sundance darling, whatever it is, people will start coming to you. They'll be like, oh, who made that music? All right, well, let's get to know that person, right? So a lot of it is just getting your work out there. And I would be focused on starting again with the young filmmakers who are going to be more excited about using free music or using really low cost music. Because these are the people that, again, if they pop, if that film is explosive on the scene, people will see your name and they will call you.
Okay. Good information. Thank you.
Yeah.
Darius, hit me up too, man. Email me and I'll set you up some people that I know who are, just as Bryan was saying, who are on the come up. So, my man, thank you so much for being here, Darius. Up next, we have Kaylin. Kaylin, how are you?
I'm good. Relaxing.
Love the vibes. Love the vibes.
Right? Thank you, Bryan, for taking time out of your day. So I'll make my question very simple. Basically, what's something on a resume that stands out when you guys look for interns? Because I know sometimes you guys do require like prior experience. So I guess like what's kind of like some background work that you would want interns to have or have done, like maybe in college or outside of college?
Yeah, I think if I don't know you, I think prior experience to me very important. And I would say, even if you're like living in, I don't know, Waterloo, Iowa, but I would like to see, I don't expect to see like you intern at Warner Brothers, but I would like to see you produce a short film or PA on a short film. Some interest in the business lets me know that wherever you are still hustling and trying to figure out how to stay creatively active, right? Like that to me shows someone that just has that thing inside of them where they want to just be working and doing things, right? I mean, even for me, when I left Arnon's desk in the Regency, a lot of my job was deep behind the scene. It was like P&Ls and spreadsheets and marketing plans for DVDs, right? Very far from producing movies and TV shows. However, on the weekends, I would make short films with my friends, right? I met young filmmakers. So even though I had this day job that was technically in the business, it wasn't anywhere near creative or development. But on my own time, I was out there producing short content. And I think, that relates to you, because no matter what experience you have today, there's things you can be doing in your local town or city or whatever that are a part of the production process that would show somebody like me that this person is hungry and they're out there just doing their thing.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Kaylin, good to meet you. Thank you so much for being here for the first time. Once again, folks, we're going to end recording now, but stick around for more questions with Bryan. Once again, if you're watching this video, please check out Our Rescue, OURrescue.org, to learn more about Operation Underground Railroad. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll stick around for more questions.